It's the end of the year, so that means another top 10 list. And this time, it's my top 10 books that were not horror. I didn't really know what else to call it because I read a lot of horror. I also read a lot of other things as well. Some of these books did not come out this year, and the first book I'm gonna name is super old. But I read it this year, so if I read it this year, it's the top 10 non-horror books that I read this year. So the first one is Dune by Frank Herbert. This is a book I'd been meaning to read for a long time. It is one of the most popular and well-known sci-fi classics. You know, it's a book about these big sandworms that if you're not careful, they'll eat you. And yeah, that's what it's about. It's about so much more than that. It is about these families, and it's very political, and they live on this planet that water is a precious commodity, and there is a drug called spice that everyone is somewhat addicted to because it's in everything, and it is where everyone makes their money. So there's overthrowing of families and then rising up, and a messiah archetype character that is the Muad'Dib, and it's such a great story. There's a reason why it stood the test of time. So the next one after Dune is A History of Wild Places by Shea Earnshaw. This book is about a writer that wrote these really dark and twisted children's books, and she disappears and has been missing for quite some time, and her family ends up hiring a guy that he has this weird ability where if he touches an object that had belonged to a person, he can like feel like echoes of their memory and almost like see what path they took or where they've gone. So they hire this guy to find her, and he goes out to find her, and then he somewhat himself disappears. And it's a weird, crazy story with some cult-like elements going on and just all kinds of weird stuff. And I love weird stories that are kind of out there, and this one definitely was, and I really enjoyed it. So after that one, we have Siren Queen by Nevo. And this is a historical fiction. I would say it almost maybe balances on the edge with a little bit of like horror type qualities, but not really horror. It's got some sapphic romance in it, and it's a look at old Hollywood. Some of the really crappy stuff that happened back then and how starlets would sell their souls. And in this book, people like sell pieces of themselves to make it to the top. And the main character, she fights to not give away like her whole self to make it to the top and to succeed. And it was just such a dark and powerful tale. Next up, we have Mistborn, the first book in the Brandon Sanderson Mistborn trilogy, which then went on to have more books in the Mistborn series. But that was my first entry gateway into Brandon Sanderson. I flippin' loved it. I've only read the first two in the series, which I absolutely loved, and I have the third, Hero of Ages, which I do plan to read soon. The whole like magic system is based on metals, like different metals do different things, and some people just have like one of the metallurgic powers or the powers that are related to these metals where they can do certain things, and then others, the rare of the Allomancers, have all of the powers. It's very political. The bringing down of this all-powerful Lord Ruler and the rising up of the lower class people who are pretty much in slavery for the most part, and just a really powerful read. Super highly addictive. I flew through it. Yeah, the Brandon Sanderson hype is for real. After that, we have Babel by R.F. Kuang, and I absolutely love that book. It follows the story of these students who are from all over the world that come to the university to translate language, and they have this whole magic system that's like a Silverworks system where it does all this stuff that basically like makes things run better and smoother, but it could do so much more. It could be used to heal the sick, and it could be used to like build people up. But a lot of times these rich people just want to use it for themselves and do stuff that's cosmetic, like make their flowers brighter, or just stuff that is frivolous. These students who come from all over the world, you know, it takes a look at the racism and the misogyny that these people went through, and just how stuff back then still correlates with today, with how like the system works and all this stuff. And it's just a really good look at it. This is something that needs to be taken a look at. So these students, they come to Babel and they have like all this opportunity, but they're just still not treated as a white person would be treated. And then there's all these like old white white men behind the scenes, like trying to start wars for no reason other than personal and financial gain, and just all this BS that comes with the territory. So the students kind of have to decide, you know, are they just gonna close their eyes and go along with this and not like try to support the people in their countries and in their culture, turn a blind eye, or are they gonna try to stand up and fight for representation, being heard, and, you know, not rolling over for these rich, greedy SOBs that want to just take everything for themselves and like forget everybody else. Next up, we have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. That book was such a dreamy, wondrous read, and it's a story within a story within a dream, and it's about this dynasty of family that how they took their power. They basically kind of stole it, and it's about the crumbling of that empire. And it starts out, and there's this kid, and his Lola, which is his grandmother, tells him these stories, and she tells him about this place that's like a dream theater where the moon and the waters used to go meet because they were in love, and that was the only place that they could meet, which was within the dream. And in the dream theater, you only visit it once because you have a part in the story that is being told, and these great plays that are acted out across the stage that talk about a time and a place of things that had happened that somehow the people in this theater are connected to, and the story of that. And it's a beautiful story, but it's sad, and there's love, and there's war, and it's heartbreaking, and it was so good. Absolutely fantastic. They're all good because they're on my top 10 list. Everything is gonna be so good and amazing. Next up, we have The Coziest, Rosiest, Nosiest Book. I don't know if it was nosiest, but Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree is the feel-good book of the year. It is so heartwarming. The characters you just love. Like, my favorite is Thimble. The little pastry ratkin chef that just seems so sweet and adorable. And what happens when, you know, you're a big tough orc warrior who decides, okay, I'm done with this murderous lifestyle. I'm gonna open up a coffee shop, get my crap together, and have a calm, nice life. She was in a gnomish city when one day, when they were out after, you know, causing a ruckus, the smell of this aromatic scent draws Viv, the main character, into this little shop that is a coffee shop that's run by these gnomes, and she has a coffee, and just the taste and the smell was such an impression on her that she was like, this is wondrous, and decides she wants to open her own coffee shop one day. So that's what happens when you lay down the sword and try to, you know, take up roots in the stuff that happened, and the scents and the smells and the music and the people that you meet along the way, and the romance that buds and the relationships that happen. It's just such a great book. If you have not read Legends and Lattes yet, get on it. I, as a lover of horror, also love books that are rosy and cozy in the cheeriest of ways. All right, now we're getting into my top 3. Number 3 is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book was just such a fantastic read. It is about these friends who were friends since they were kids, and then they lost touch, and they got back in touch in college, and they create a video game together, and the game takes off and success happens. The relationship between them, and then the love interest, and it also has representation for disability. It's heartbreaking at points. It's a beautiful story. The video game vibe in it is fantastic, and just it was really touching how it was written. I really, really loved it. All right, Number 2 was Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott, and this is the story of the Yaga siblings who were estranged for many years. Several years later, they received this strange inheritance, and it's Baba Yaga's house, a house that has chicken feet. The Yaga siblings do have like some strange abilities. Those might come in need because following this house is a strange man of shadows with murderous intents. And at some point, the siblings will have to stop and face him. And it's a story of remembrance and remembering your past and your roots, a story of forgiveness, a story of love, and just so many things are interwoven into it. And it was very beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. All right, now, my number 1 book that was not horror is, some of you may know. Obviously, it's not Ghoul in the Cape this time. Can you hear that? That's my drum roll. I'm trying to do a better drum roll than the horror one where I was like, da 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 da. it didn't sound like that, but it was just as bad. So the number one book is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, and I would almost even tie her other book into that came out this year too, Heart of the Sun Warrior. It's a duology of the Celestial Kingdom. The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, the story is the Moon Goddess took this elixir of immortality that was not necessarily given to her. She became immortal. This did not set well with the Celestial Kingdom, so they banished her to the moon where she may never ever leave. But she took the elixir because she was with child and she was going to die. They did not know that she was pregnant. So she has her daughter, and her daughter lives there for many years until one day, like, she kind of like sets off magical triggers, and then she has to leave and escape so that the people don't come and like find out that the daughter exists. The daughter goes down and lives among the other people and slowly works her way towards gaining her mother's freedom. And it's this long saga, and it's magical, and it's this powerful female character and the love interests and just how she gets to the point where is she able to free her mother. And it was just a really beautiful, magical, and vivid story that I absolutely loved. And I also love the second book too that I thought was just as good, Heart of the Sun Warrior. So that's my number one. If you like top 10 lists, the next video coming up will be another top 10 list of books that I loved this year that are horror, which you might not like. I don't know. So stick around, check it out. And if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button. Come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.